What is the Cookout? The Cookout is a group of all black people with a victimhood and inferiority complex that does everything they do for a non existing cause that they insincerely believe in. Now, what is Wakanda? It's a woke black social political sponsored by white liberal papa movement and place. But it's simultaneously a self destructive place that's imaginary in actual physical location, but it's very real in terms of its presence based on the type of people who consume a place and make it their home, aka Wakanda. Now, usually it's called the Hood, but since the 2018 Disney Marvel movie, it's referred to as Wakanda, or at least that's what I and a few others refer to it as. And it's spreading to woke white utopias nationwide. For example, here's a quote from a River North resident stating, quote, "This is no way to live," end quote. Now, this statement is being made after an increase of crime. And one of the notable crimes that has recently occurred was a first degree murder stabbing inside a bank, a Chase bank to be exact. And it was by the hands of a Cookout member who's 35 years old, calls himself, or I should say his mother called him, Jawan Westbrooks. You already know what it is with that. And then another situation occurred which brought forth this is no way to live quote. When two men robbed and beat a person in public. And those instances, like other instances, prompted these cries for an increase in police presence, which came by way of a Chicago alderman. And I'm sure this was the same alderman who was advocating the thousands who were gathering last year. Which brings me to more Chicago instances of Wakanda spreading and causing 1,200 carjackings in this year alone. A glorious region of Wakanda, Chicago, and their citizens apparently are finally fed up because people are so scared they don't want to leave their homes, one news report stated. And it has nothing to do with COVID. That's not why they don't want to leave their homes. It has to do with Cookout members, aka Wakandian natives. Now, again, you must remember the thousands that gathered last year to burn, loot, murder, and protest in the wake of a crackhead pregnant woman assaulter being killed by cops. And the main ones who was cheerleading all that bullshit was woke white libtards from Utopias, aka the suburbs. I mean, you even had stories about teenage white Wokians, who went on TikTok to promote that they were having confrontations with their parents over the BLM protest riots. Well, now these bitches are begging for help as a result of suffering the consequences for their wokeness. And you have residents in Bucktown and Wicker Park who are outraged over the carjackings. And I say they're getting everything they fucking deserve. I say that because I mean that, and it's what they deserve. And I hope they get more. Because you have these fucking morons who always want to run their mouth, be on Twitter, make all the virtue signals in the world, and usually they're doing so from the comfort of their white suburb or suburbia neighborhood, aka the white woke utopia. But now that's being invaded. Here's another example. A Cookout member disguised as a white man and committed 30 robberies while under this disguise. He finally got arrested once he was found on camera in Houston with his COVID protection mask on, beating the shit out of an old man. And what was that woke white old man's response? He said, well, you could blame it on the COVID-19 or you could blame it on the poverty. This dude was trying to bash this old man's brains in, dragging him across the floor. But this old, stupid, white, woke fucker is already giving this dude an out. And this is why I say liberal whites aren't bright. They got a goddamn woke death wish. And speaking of death wishes, let's move over into the city of Portland. Pretty much like the capital of woke. Well, the city of Portland is now dealing with 1,000 shootings in 1 year. The home of Antifa and BLM, who wanted to defund the police. Well, they want to refund the police now. And their city leadership is asking for more money to refund the police, I guess. Again, after all year enabling riots and even an autonomous zone known as Chaz, where, rape and murder happen quickly. I guess that white woke utopia is getting what they asked for. And now let's move over to another location because the lists keep on coming. Here in this story, it's about a white liberal religious couple. My favorite kind, white, woke, and liberal religious, dumb, aimless fucks. Well, in this situation, you have a young mother of two, 23 years old, being shot and killed while she was reading Bible verses to her infant child. You see, she was killed by a stray bullet. A stray bullet that came through a gun battle between Cookout members, aka native Wakandians. And their battle has spread into the suburbs of North Suburban Zion. And you can guarantee the father who now remains with their kids will still preach woke shit to their children. Because liberal whites aren't bright and they'll never learn. Now, again, the Wakandians, the Cookout members, they don't just spread and harm the woke white libtards. They harm fellow Wakandians as well. In fact, that's who they mostly harm. And in Brooklyn, we had another stray bullet, which hit a female teenager, in the head. Luckily, she survived, but we know how woke New York is, and they are to blame for this happening. They're just a diverse collection of idiot woke tards, generally led by their white liberal leaders, or as I like to refer to them as their masters, their owners. Now, You want to hear what these woke white libtards are planning to do to resolve all this? Well, in San Fran, the mayor, who's a strong woman of color who got caught dancing in the club without her mask on, well, this token of white libtards plan on appeasing criminals by solving these situations, offering to pay them $100,000 to snitch on their criminal pals. Because the woke whiteys, whitey number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc., they're complaining now, a little bit more. They're complaining. They're upset about all this rise of crime. For example, you have these two who were robbed with their car broken into. Their passports were stolen. Their IDs were stolen. And even their precious COVID cards were stolen. And the moment that I heard they had COVID cards, I was like, oh yeah, these bitches deserve to be robbed. But at least they can be satisfied in knowing that they're contributing to the less fortunate, being able to move through the commie state of California with their falsely endorsed cards. Now, back to Chicago, where white liberal alderman suddenly wants to respond to the mass shootings and carjackings that have been going on at an accelerated rate and expanding into areas where normally this kind of shit wasn't happening. They referred it to as crime is spreading beyond normal hotspots. That's how they refer to it as. But again, with these woke Cookout fans and members in charge, 9 times out of 10, shit won't happen because you can't hold people accountable. You can't hold certain people accountable for bad behavior. Now, over in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, they plan on addressing their rising crime by Wakandian natives and Cookout members. They plan to address it by banning traffic stops for minor offenses after deeming them racist towards Cookout members. Now, this bright idea is coming from the same place where they have a Tiffany type as their police chief. A fair-skinned, strong woman of color who said single moms make for the best cops. And guess who their police commissioner is? Some bloated, old, white, libtard female. What a fucking duo. Man, we really need a split America. We need to split it in half. Because you fucking woketards are endlessly fucking retarded and a disgrace to mankind. Now, back in San Francisco once again. Now, in a previous video, I referred to the many Walgreens that were being abandoned. They were abandoning the area due to the uptick of thievery, which was enabled by the people of San Fran supporting the fact that you could steal items up to $900 in value, because that's logical and that solves crimes. Well, a San Francisco politician seems to be backpedaling from that after a Walgreens clerk's head got cracked during a robbery. Now, again, remember, during the protest riots last year, which happened in areas like San Fran, when people were stealing things and people were justifying it by saying, oh, stuff is stuff. They don't have value like human life, so people shouldn't be protecting their stuff from these thieves. Well, now business is leaving that area, and their economy is going to be fucked. And people are still getting assaulted over things. And some killed like David Dorn was killed last year during a woke protest riot over fucking television. And his widow, Ann Dorn, by the way, has decided to abandon the liberal politic bullshit. And she has decided to campaign for some dude named Glenn Youngkin, who was running for office in Virginia. But the reason why I highlight this story, because guess who he's running against? He's running against someone that Obama has recently endorsed. You know, to do his little tap dance and his little minstrel show to try to get votes for this dude. So Obama's against David Dorn's widow and what she desires. No, I guess Black lives only matter when his liberal master handlers tell him which lives matter and when they do. And last but not least, let's go back to Chicago once again, and Texas. Now in Chicago, where all the liberal whites are starting to get upset because the crime is spreading to their safe spaces, a young teen in Chicago got interviewed recently on the news to express how she feels about the uptick in crime and being a part of the problem, helping terrify these people. Here's a hint. She has no remorse. So, all of the Jolenes of the world and all the Robs of the world, you can change your Twitter bio to all the woke shit you want. These Cookout members still don't give a fuck. And in fact, they experience glee in terrifying your ass and running you off to North Carolina or somewhere else in the South that you moved to so you can fuck that place up after you fucked up another place. Stupid motherfuckers. And speaking of no remorse, let's look at the mass shooting situation in Texas. A shooting which initially got a lot of news because they thought it was going to fit a certain narrative, but it got revealed it was a Cookout member. And once that got revealed, coverage kind of ceased. But a lot of spats started to occur back and forth online between libtards and cuck conservatives on Twitter. With the libtards in Texas, and I'm sure in other areas, people who weren't from Texas commenting on this. And they were referring to the shooter as a goddamn baby. Somebody actually called him a baby. Calling him a baby. Fucking shooter. Responsible for 4 people getting injured. Now, people say, oh, this is a so-called red state. How can it happen there? Well, I'll tell you how. Because Texas is full of fucking woke libtards infesting the area, especially through Dallas and Houston. But it's also filled with, let's say, Cody Nixon type of conservatives. The kind who says the Cookout is not racist because it would be like him teaming up with a group of infantrymen from the military. That was such a fucking cuck answer, a cuck conservative answer. But again, that's how these so-called conservatives are. They give up ground every time. And they still have to deal with being called racist, whether they are or not. And then they end up having to deal with situations like these shootouts and uptick and the uptick of crime in their areas. And then they actually get mad and legit racist. But they get mad and racist over shit that they helped cause by being fucking cowards and not calling the shit out and standing on their own too. Now, I could go on, but I won't because there's just too much shit. And again, I don't have to go back fucking 100 years doing slavery. 200 years, 400 years ago. I don't have to go back that far. I can go back to yesterday, an hour ago, last week, last month. Stick to this year and highlight all of the shit. A list of things that shows how Wakanda is spreading and it's being enabled by these woke libtards that say the cookout can't be racist or bad behavior in general can't be held accountable to these people. And again, they're responsible for this bullshit that's happening. You know, just recently I heard a couple of shootings across the street from myself. Yeah, and unfortunately, I live in a woke libtard area. Thank you for all the shootings I get to hear, have to be concerned with, fucking idiots. Now, again, I call this shit out because so-called race, as these fools describe it, it means nothing to me. It means jack shit. In fact, showing me your race and using it as a source of pride only makes me see you as an enemy agent of chaos. Robbed at gunpoint, family members robbed, treated like shit due to woke work politics, all committed by Cookout members that like to call people family, kings, and queens. So fuck that race shit. They harm everybody, regardless of race. So fuck it. And I'm glad now that the bullshit people like me and others like me had to deal with is now coming to the doorsteps of people like the Jolenes of the world, coming to their areas, coming and entering into the suburbs. I love it, motherfuckers. Deal with the shit that others have had to deal with and that you have enabled. And lastly, these people don't even know what race is. They think it's a color. It's the same fucking retards who also now think men can have periods and give birth like women. But again, this is the consequences of playing that Big Brother life game the way it was played in that house. Now, before I truly end this video, I would like to end it on I guess you could say, happy ending, or more so a promising ending. Now, recently, there was a lot of violence in a Louisiana high school. 23 students were arrested in a string of violence. But guess what has solved that problem? What we have already known, what has already been established, especially during the period where we were segregated and there were fathers in the house, fathers in the neighborhood, making sure shit didn't get too crazy, before we got integrated and have the society that we have today. Well, fathers, dads showing up at the schools quelled the violence, created a positive atmosphere because it required some toxic masculinity to resolve things, male presence. Now, again, we know this is what needs to be done, in the households, in the neighborhoods, in the schools, but they purposely blocked this shit out. And now they got so fucking desperate, they finally allow the fathers to get involved. It was about 40 of these guys. And so hopefully it continues. But if you are aware of anything, you're aware of how people can hijack something positive and constructive like this. Because in Detroit, a few years ago, the Detroit 300 were a group of men that was out to save their community, go after child killers, go after rapists, declare a war on the Detroit gangs. You know, and some of them even got murdered. But what ultimately brought them down? Usual suspect, a Devon type, a combative liberal black woman brought this group down. Now, it might exist in some semblance, some form, but nowhere near to where it did exist. And again, brought down by the strong, independent women. Because they always fuck shit up. But I said I wanted to end it on a happy note, so here you see in Louisiana that the spread of Wakanda can be quelled if you allow resolution to actually take fold. All right, now I'm finished.